Hello, my name is Bethany, and I am a conservation specialist with Crow Wing Soil and Water Conservation District. Today, my presentation is going to be on wetlands. So some objectives for today are: what is a wetland, types of wetlands, benefits, threats, a wetland plant, animal, and then an on your own activity plant and animal word search, and then a Minnesota Wetland Finder application. So let's start with what is a wetland. So a definition are: wetlands are areas where water covers the soil or is present either at or near the surface of the soil all year or for varying periods of the time during the year, including during the growing season. So all wetlands are going to share the following characteristics. They're going to have mostly hydric soils, meaning that their soil is developed for wet conditions. They are wet either above the ground or within 12 inches of the ground surface during all parts of the growing season, and they have vegetation adapted to wet soil conditions. So then types of wetlands. So Minnesota has approximately 10.6 million acres of wetlands in our state. And wetlands cover about 20% of the state, which is roughly 10 times more than lakes and rivers combined. So a way that we classify these are through the Circular 39 system. And it was developed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 1956, and it divides wetlands in Minnesota into 8 types. The main differences between them are the depth of water and the variety of vegetation. So here we can see type 1 includes a floodplain forest or a seasonally flooded basin, and you go all the way down to type 8, which is a bog, a coniferous bog, or an open bog. So then there are many benefits of having wetlands in our state. So one benefit is erosion control. So wetland vegetation reduces wave damage along lakes and stream banks. So therefore it is controlling erosion or minimizing it. Then we have flood control. Wetlands can slow and retain water runoff, reducing the frequency of flooding along lakes, streams, and rivers. It has groundwater recharge and discharge. So some wetlands recharge groundwater by holding the surface water and allowing it to slowly filter into groundwater reserves. And then some wetlands are discharge areas, meaning they receive groundwater even during dry periods, and they help maintain the water that flows into nearby rivers and streams. So wetlands are very important for water quality. So wetlands protect the water quality of downstream lakes, rivers, and streams by removing pollutants. And then they are home to rare species. So 43% of threatened or endangered species in the US live or depend on wetlands. Then they have a recreational value as well. They're a great place to canoe, hunt, fish, or watch wildlife. And then they have an economic value by providing commodities such as wild rice and bait fish. So then here's just an image of kind of the benefits or that can be threatened to Minnesota's wetlands. So like we said, with the snow or a melt or a rainfall event that is having the water kind of slow down, and it will enter the wetland, and the contaminants or pollutants and sediment are filtered through and broken down. And then it's providing that critical habitat to waterfowl and other animals. And then cleaner water is able to be released into streams, lakes, and rivers. So some threats to Minnesota wetlands include disappearing wetlands. So in Minnesota, there is a long history of draining and filling Minnesota wetlands to accommodate settlement and development. Nearly 40% of the state was in some form a wetland 150 years ago. Now that percentage has been cut in half. The loss of wetlands has meant a loss in water quality benefits and has contributed to the degradation of streams, lakes, and groundwaters. So the state and federal government has an overall goal of maintaining or increasing wetland acreage along with maintaining the wetland quality, which is affected by pollutants, water fluctuations, and other factors. So another threat is the alteration in water movement. So about 80% of Minnesota wetlands have experienced even moderate water alterations and now have abundant invasive plants growing in them. So those invasive plant species are going to permanently replace native plant communities, and this can change the wildlife habitat and the wetland's ability to provide water quality benefits. And wetlands are very important to watersheds. Wetlands can help remove excess sediment and nitrogen from water, but they can become overwhelmed and degraded in the process. Losing wetlands to urban development, agriculture, and other activities, or overloading them can contribute to water quality problems in other parts of our watershed. So then a wetland plant that you might be aware of is wild rice. So Minnesota has more acres of natural wild rice than any other state in the country. Wild rice has been historically documented in 45 out of 87 of Minnesota's counties in all corners of the state. Wild rice is an important social and cultural component for the Native American tribes and rural Minnesota communities. Over 64,000 acres of wild rice were found in the waters of Minnesota, and more than half of the acreage was found in Aiken, Cass, Crow Wing, Itasca, and St. Louis counties, so up where we are in northern Minnesota. Wild rice is a persistent annual grass that reproduces each year from the seeds deposited in the previous fall season. This plant typically grows in shallow to moderate water depths, about 1 to 3 feet, and is affected by water flow, turbidity, and water quality, along with water fluctuations. And wild rice provides a very attractive habitat for migrating waterfowl or birds, and many wild rice areas are traditional waterfowl staging or hunting areas. So then our wetland animal we're going to cover today is a beaver. So you may have seen one of these before. They're the largest North American rodent and a very active woodcutter or dam builder. The beaver is a perfect example of animal adaptation to their aquatic environment. Their nose and ears valve shut as the animal submerges into the water, and they have eyes that serve as natural goggles to protect their eyes from irritation. So they have a membrane over their eye that allows them to see underwater. And then meanwhile, they have lips that close behind their front teeth, enabling them to carry a branch in its mouth without drowning from all the water while they're swimming. And then a beaver can remain submerged as long as 20 minutes, and it uses its broad tail as a rudder when it's swimming and as a sturdy prop on land. So that brings us to our plant and animal word search. So we have different animals and plants that can be found in wetlands throughout Minnesota. So I will attach this so this can be done at the end of our presentation. And then if you're curious about whether or not you have a wetland near you, Minnesota has an NWI wetland finder. So it's gonna have our 8 different types of the circular 39 classes we talked about before. And you'll be able to click on the link at the end of this presentation and see what kind of wetlands might be around you in your area. So then here are the resources I used today to help make this presentation. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can email or call and then visit our website. So thank you so much for learning a little bit more about wetlands with me today, and I'll see you in our next video.